Before we start this event, I would just like to ask everybody to engage in just a brief minute or so of some Vaheguru Simran. So if I could ask you all to just with your back straight, put your hands together, close your eyes, and just say with me, Vaheguru, 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 Vaheguru. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So I'm Dawinderpal Singh from the Sikh Press Association. The Sikh Press Association is part of Everything's 13. Everything's 13 also includes Basics of Sikhi. Hopefully most of you are familiar with Basics of Sikhi. We have a YouTube channel, Katha and talks all over the country and actually now all over the world. We have Sikhi camps. We've just recently had a very successful Gors camp, and there'll be a Singhs camp in March, and registration for that will open on Monday. And also as part of the Everything's 13 brand, we have Mighty Khalsa, which produces books and puzzles for children, and Kiddy Sangat, which is a regular meetup for Sikh children. So we have just started with some Vaheguru Simran. This is just to get us into a calm and focused state of mind. But this today is not a katha, it's not a religious discourse or a theological discussion. We're not looking at the role that arts has played throughout Sikh history. Instead, what we're doing is something slightly different to that. We're just looking at the way in which Sikhs engage with the arts today. Obviously, there is a rich tradition of the arts in Sikhi. You know, if you look at Kirtan, if we look at Tadivara, you know, the music kind of influences, as well as calligraphy, paintings, and storytelling. But that's kind of the background to what we're here to talk about today. So just a little bit about the Sikh Press Association. The Sikh Press Association is funded by you, the Sangat, for you, the Sangat. Our remit is to liaise with the press over news coverage about the Sikh community and the Sikh faith to ensure accuracy and accountability. We also provide media training to people and organizations. We've run media workshops, and we've run events just like today's panel discussion. Just a few house rules. We may not all share the same views, but this is a Sikh event, and this is a Sangat environment. So there's the deep bond of Sikhi which connects us. So we must all show respect to one another, let's not talk over one another, and remain courteous throughout. If you would like to make a comment at any stage during the discussion, please put your hand up. We will have time for questions from the audience at the end of the discussion as well. But please do not talk until somebody has come to you with a microphone for the audience here in the room and also those watching at home. This event is being streamed on Facebook Live and on YouTube Live, and the final recording will be uploaded to YouTube at a later date. If you are posting about this event on social media, please use the hashtag Sikhs in the Arts. The fire exit is through that door to the right, the same way that you came in. We're not expecting a fire drill. Toilets for the gents is through that door to the left, and for the ladies it's through the door to the right and through the two sets of double doors. And if you would like to make a donation to Everything's 13, you can do so at everythings13.org and the Make a Donation page. So with no further ado, let us crack on with the discussion and allow me to introduce the panelists and what a panel we have today. So I'll start. On my far left, we have Dadan Singh, aka Dadan 3D. Dadan Singh is a 3D artist who runs his own design consultancy. He's a veteran in the space of Sikh arts and is doing some pioneering work with the Sikh Virtual Museum, reconstructing historical Sikh artifacts using 3D technology and virtual and augmented reality. He has produced Sikh figurines, and he is working on a Khalsa action figure. And he is also a founding member of Art Sikh, which is a collaborative project aimed at giving a platform to Sikh arts and artists. Next to him, we have Sukh Ochla, who is a comedian, actor, and writer, Many of you may recognize her from her stand-up comedy on BBC Two's Big Asian Stand-Up Show and on the BBC network. Her debut solo show, For Sukh's Sake, received rave reviews last year, and this year, Sukh will be embarking on a nationwide tour with her new show, Life Sukhs. As an actor, Sukh has also appeared on The End of the Effing World and Game Face on Channel 4. I almost slipped up there. She also appeared in the feature film Victoria and Abdul alongside Dame Judi Dench. And next to her, we have Eshmeet Kaur, who is an actor and a spoken word artist. She is currently studying drama therapy and is interested in the healing power of the arts. She works with refugee children, victims of abuse, and people with autism using performance art as a form of therapy. To my right, we have Singh Mahoon, who is a rap artist and activist. I don't know if you remember this, but I actually met Singh Mahoon several years ago when he opened up for El Fresh the Lion, who's an Australian Sikh rapper in Soho. And since then he's gone from strength to strength. He's released an EP and an album, and he's currently working on his second album. In his work, he addresses issues such as the Sikh faith, modern culture, and Sikh independence. And finally, last but not least, on the right here, we have Amandeep Singh, aka Inquisitive, who's a world-renowned illustrator who has done private commissions for iconic celebrities and such as musicians Gurdas Maan, LL Cool J, Bollywood actresses Madhuri Dixit and Kareena Kapoor, and footballer Mesut Ozil. His portraits of Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji and Sri Guru Gobind Singh Ji, as well as his depictions of Sri Harmandir Sahib, are among his most popular prints, and he has proven immensely popular within the Sikh community. So there we have our fantastic panel. Let's crack on with the show. So the first question we have had is about Sikhi and how it influences your art. So we'll start with Amandeep Singh, Inquisitive. You do a lot of illustrations about Sikh gurus and Harmandir Sahib. So would you like to explain how the Sikhi influence your art?
First of all, it's a pleasure to be here, so thank you to Sikh PA and everyone involved in having me on this panel. Obviously, Sikhi plays a massive role in my artwork and being an influence. I actually picked up art through my dad. He's a calligrapher, and he used to do calligraphy for the royal family. Not many people know that. He used to work at the Indian High Commission, so he used to do that. So as a child, I used to try copying his work. Terrible at it, absolutely terrible, but I used to try. And my dad's habit, and God bless him, he still does it, is before we go to bed, he used to tell me stories about the gurus and small things that used to stick in my head, about the Char Sahibs are there, or my Bhaggo. And as a child, my local Gurdwara is Barking Gurdwara. So we used to go there and I see all these images and always the same ones, and no disrespect to any of the artists I used to see, but I used to see them everywhere. And then I thought, I need to take a challenge on trying to see what I can bring out through my dad's stories. So I feel like my parents, both of them actually, are a heavy influence in my artwork, and also traveling in India, traveling around the world, has allowed me to kind of capture certain moments. And the name Inquisitive is what it is. I pose so many questions. I ask questions. It's kind of annoying if you meet me. Like I purposely ask questions. So as a child, I was growing up, I was doing that. Like, why can't Guru Nanak Dev Ji's eyes be blue? Like, who knows if they were blue? Like, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, some people say 7 foot. What about if he's 8 foot? What about if he's 9 foot? Like, what about if Guru Gobind Singh Ji used to talk to his horse and this? I used to purposely do that, and I feel like that influence has come from me understanding about the gurus through my dad and his story. So with that said, I feel like to conclude what you've kindly put forward to me is that my father is a huge influence in my life, and still is, and I hope it continues to be. Yeah.
Taran Singh, would you mind answering that question? How does Sikhi influence your art?
Yeah, I think it's a massive part of my artwork, because the whole reason I took up art was to actually see how we can kind of start to teach younger people. We were doing camps back in the day, and we were looking at different ways of engaging young people and communicating with them. And so we found that art was a really good way to kind of communicate in a kind of soft way that people could understand. And, you know, starting off from doing posters for the camps, doing posters for the Gurdwara, and then moving on and starting to do kind of like animations and images and, you know, things like that. So pretty much the whole purpose of everything that we do, and the whole purpose of setting up Art Seek, was that we could promote and other younger Sikh artists promote their work and show their work. So yeah, big part.
That's amazing. We spoke earlier about what does it mean to actually be a Sikh in the arts, and that's very much related to this. You know, how the Sikh influence your art.
Sikhi has influenced my art in every way. I got into Sikhi because of Shahidi music, so I hope my music now embodies that. My music is always about the Sikh liberation movement in the pursuit of Khalistan. Yeah, so.
That's great. Suk, would you like to explain how Sikhi influences your art?
Both of my parents are Amritdhari, so I was brought up in a very kind of traditional, very observant Sikh household. I was the kid that did Kirtan 4 times a week at the Gurdwara, which I love the social aspect of it, but I can't sing. I don't know how much the Sangat enjoyed it. So I was kind of used to performing from like quite a kind of young age, being like quite a shy child, and then like obviously like being on stage a lot, and then obviously going into my background is in acting, but I do more comedy now. I get to write about my own experiences, which is one of the reasons I prefer comedy over acting, is because I can use my own voice and, you know, talk as a Punjabi Sikh woman, I guess, on stage very openly about my experiences. So rather than talking directly about Sikhi, talk about what it means to me, in my case, to be a Sikh.
Great stuff. And in Shbiko, a lot of your work is very much focused on Sikhi. Could you explain how Sikhi influences your art?
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So I don't think it's possible for me to be able to separate the two, because I am a Sikh. But I also believe that, or at least I aspire for it to be like the overarching part of my personality. So whether I create art to do with itihas, or whether it's about like core beliefs of Sikhi, it's always going to be there, whether that's direct or intentional, whether it intertwines or comes up in a way that I didn't expect it to, it's always there. And I think I've figured out through time that art enhances or deepens my relationship with Sikhi. And therefore, if every day of my life this is how I identify and this is how I choose to live my life, then that doesn't make a difference whether I'm an artist or whether I'm working in a bank. Sikhi is always going to be there. It's always going to be, like I said, I always hope for it to be the overarching part of who I am. So even if I run in the other direction, why don't just going to pull me back?
That's it. That's great. That's a great answer there. Did anybody want to comment on that, or have any kind of follow-up questions on how Sikhi influences each of these individual artists' art? Okay, great. So we'll crack on to the next question, which is, does the Sikh community embrace the arts enough? And I think we want to know, to what extent has the community actually supported your art? What kind of support have you seen? And I'd like to start off with Dharan Singh now, because I know you founded Art Sikh as well, and that's very much on this.
A few years ago, when we were looking at certain issues that Punjabi people had, so we were looking at different things like alcoholism, you know, and you know, other political issues, or like the Bapu Surat Singh issue was quite big at the moment, and we were thinking, how could we kind of engage more people in being involved with this conversation. So we started to do art exhibitions at the Gurdwara, and we started off at like Smethwick and around that area in Birmingham. So we started doing Sikh exhibitions. We did one in London as well, and we just asked artists if they would like to do some artwork based around the themes that we had. And what we found was that a lot of them felt that you know, that their community didn't care about their art. And just for them to be able to come to the Gurdwara and show their artwork, and really they didn't want, it wasn't necessarily somebody to come and buy their artwork, but just for people to come along and appreciate it. it was just like a massive honor and boost for them and their artwork. And we found when we did that, they started to produce more Sikh art, and because they saw actually as Sangat is actually appreciating it. So the other thing that we found was that you know, a lot of our Sikh artists are not patronized by our community, so our people won't buy our Sikh artists' artwork. So we had one situation where, you know, a white person did a painting of Harmandir Sahib, and how many people were bidding on it. Whereas, you know, when we had our own Punjabi artists who were really talented doing work, and they were like, yeah, I'll give you £5 or £10 for it and stuff, yeah. So you're finding that within our community, the appreciation isn't there. And what we're trying to encourage with ArtSeek is, because another part of ArtSeek is actually mentoring and training up these artists in how to kind of, because one thing that we find is they're very good at art, very talented, but they're missing that kind of business side of things. And what is the business of your art? Because they think, oh, we're artists and we're going to do art, but how are you going to monetize that? How are you going to make that into a career? So that's kind of a big part of what the community needs to kind of support our artists more, but we also need to kind of give support and guidance to these artists as well. And that's one of the main reasons why we set up ArtSeek. And we've even got artists from Russia, Canada, and we've got artists from India as well. And especially the artists from India, they're really struggling. So we kind of get donations from people to be able to print their artwork and be able to show it. And it's a big boost for them as well to have their work shown, even if it's a good run. We've done exhibitions we just did Birmingham Museum and Art Gallery, the Birmingham Library, and we did Walsall Art Gallery, and we're going to be doing a few more. And it's kind of moving into the mainstream now. And we've been getting asked by like other churches and other communities to come and do, because it's a very kind of easy way to kind of communicate to people about your background and your faith. And so we got nominated for an Interfaith Award as well. So that was really cool because we're kind of engaging other communities and, you know, and a lot of workshops we do with kids as well. So we're finding, you know, stuff like that. The problem is that art isn't really valued by our parents' generation. So, you know, a lot of people don't see it as a way to make a career or a way to be a business or whatever. But we're finding that and I've seen this with my own children. You know, I've got 3 kids. The older 2, you know, both budding artists, and we've made it so that you know, we encourage them to express themselves through art and stuff like that. And they're like, I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, oh, if we had this kind of encouragement, you know, by the time they're 20, they're going to be like amazing. Like they'll surpass me like so many times over. And I think we need to start creating that culture of like encouragement and support.
Yeah, that encouragement is really, really important, isn't it? So did you feel that the Sikh community really embraced you when you first started up with the stand-up and the acting?
Yeah, and they still do. I'm really lucky. Like majority of the audiences that come to my shows, especially my solo show, are Sikh, and that's fantastic, and that's lovely to see, and it's lovely to have like groups of friends, or like I always get so much joy to look out and to see Sings and Chords and the Stars like in my audience. It fills my heart. It's so lovely to see it feels like my people are in, and it's really lovely. It's really lovely to do that, and like what you were saying, I think is really true. One of the kind of comments I always like to meet audience members after shows is, oh, it's really weird to see somebody of our faith or like our background doing this, and but we need more, which I completely agree with. But then, you know, and then I'm like, well, if you've got children, maybe you could encourage them into the arts, and they'll be like, oh no, like we're not going to do that, but we would like to see more of you. But I'm like, well, he's got to start somewhere. So I think there's a really long way to go, and like what you were saying, like if I'd received the encouragement as a child to kind of pursue my like creative passions, then you know, I wouldn't be 35 and living at home and still struggling to make my way in the industry. But like in general, yeah, like a huge amount of support, and I'm very lucky. And I think the best thing that people can do to support the arts is buy Sikh art, like buy art made by Sikhs, like, you know, whether that's a show, whether it's a film, like support them, don't ask for discounts, like go and like, you know, it has a value, and show them the value, because I think often we're seen as less than, not only by like our white counterparts, but also like by our own community. So I think the best thing we can do is support.
What do you think is the reason for that? Why do you think people do value our own less?
colonialism. I mean, like in a word, like I'm gonna say it. You know, I think there's a lot of self-hatred amongst a lot of communities. You know, because of that, you're still like white is still seen as best. And sorry, I got a bit deep there, but I think that's
a lot of people seem to be agreeing with you.
But I think it's true, and yeah, I think that's it.
Singh Mahoon, I noticed that you kind of resonated with you. Did the Sikh community embrace your arts when you first took to the stage?
So I'm so happy you said that. I feel a lot more comfortable with everything I'm going to say next. So firstly, it's a loaded question. It's a loaded question, especially in a landscape of colonization where our expression is otherized until we fit the mainstream definition, a space that's dominated by whiteness. So it's really important to ask, whose definition of the arts are we talking about? Yeah. All art is political. To not be political is to bend to the status quo, and you're still political. So at the start, it was interesting, you said our art is, we're not going to talk about Kirtan and Dadi, and like the difference between that, I understand. And like that was, I find that hurtful, because what's the difference between our art and what we have in our gurdwara, you know? Like in our gurdwara, there's an abundance of art. Ramalle art, the architecture, the takht, and Guru's Darbar is artwork. Kirtan, Tadi, Kavishri is artwork, you know? And like Gurbani is the pinnacle of Sikh artistic expression, literary poetry. And like, I find it a bit of a weird question to see if Sikhs embrace art. The Guru gives us our most truest definition of ourselves.
But I think the reason for the phrasing of the question was very much for, to identify this issue of the Sikh community not really supporting Sikh artists and undervaluing Sikh artists as well. Do you feel that that's the case with you as well? Do you feel like we've seen people bidding less for art from say non-Sikhs? Do you kind of experience that too?
No.
That's good. Okay, so I'll ask Ashmiko the same question. How does the Sikh community embrace your art?
Okay, this really warms my heart, this question, because the first time I put a bid in for just a really, really small pot of funding, Baji actually helped me write it a couple of years ago. So that's like amazing for me. Oh, I'm getting a bit emotional, but yeah, it was amazing. So I do feel really supported. When I did my last big project last year and I applied for Arts Council funding, Everything's 13 supported and they wrote the letter of recommendation. So it's really moving when we're in this space and we are sharing the fact that actually our community does support us. And I think because I'm fed up of going into spaces and people saying like, oh, I'm not supported or I don't know where to go. And it's like, we are here. We are sitting here, we're in front of you, come and speak to us. Like, we want to support you and we're struggling ourselves. And unless we pull together and we stop seeing differences and we all realise that in order for us to grow and move forward, we have to be prepared to connect and to speak out. Because that's the truth. Like, if we keep hiding and shying away from opportunities or not creating opportunities ourselves, then like, what are we doing? What are we playing out? We are going to definitely fall behind. So the fact that I'm sitting on this panel with the first person that helped me write a bid is crazy. Like, that's crazy. And like I said, Everything's 13, who wrote my letter of recommendation last year, also crazy. And the fact that I'm sitting here right now is obviously Mada just kid. So it's a bit mad for me, to be honest with you. And also what I want to point out is that people might not know me or any of us as like artists, but they might know our art, if that makes sense. So last year when we did get the Arts Council bid successfully, it was a play called Himmat, and it was about a Sikh bus driver, Tarsem Singh, and he was the guy that changed the laws surrounding Sikh bus drivers. And when we were looking at the feedback, we the main aim of that was for people of similar backgrounds, not just Sikh backgrounds, but like it was based in Wolverhampton, which has a lot of minorities in there. We wanted to really pull those people in and try and showcase not only local talents, but stories that are important and speak out to everybody, not just white people, but stories that showcase different communities and different groups in the Wolverhampton area. And we were successful in getting mostly minorities, I use that term, but you know what I mean, into the room. And I kind of realized in that moment that 3/4 of the people don't know me personally. They don't know the people on the stage at all, but they're coming because they want to see us doing things, and they want to, exactly what Sukhbirnji said, they actually want to see people like us on a stage or in platforms or creating artwork that goes out to millions and millions of people. So even if they don't know you on a personal level, you guys probably know what we're doing, but just don't know the people behind it. So we're being supported in a way that we don't even realize, because we're too trapped in Hankar and we're too egotistical and we want all the glory ourselves. We forget the true meaning of what art is. And art is Guru Maharaj. If you know, you know.
No, that's a great answer. I'm really glad to hear that you've been supported in your art as well. And that's actually one of the main aims of tonight as well, is to put all of us in the same room, allow us to introduce each other. There's a lot of artists in this room, a lot of producers, a lot of musicians, a lot of people in performing arts. Introduce yourselves to one another, make those contacts, because in this industry, a lot of it is about who you know, not just what you know. So I want to also ask Inquisitive as well the same question. Does the Sikh community embrace the arts enough? And what kind of support have you received from the community?
So, by the way, all those 4 answers are incredible. I don't know how to follow that up right now, man. But I've been going under the name Inquisitive for 10 years. August 24th is when I founded Facebook. Instagram didn't even exist then. I'm giving my age away here, man. But when I first started out, no one wanted to know about it. I'm not trying to bash our community, because I would never do that. I represent till the very end. But no one wanted to know about it. Everyone just thought it's another turban kid that's trying to draw. And this is 2010. One of the reasons why I ended up doing my first exhibition in Canada was because out there, I realized they saw me as collaboration rather than competition. And once I realized that there's a whole new world of our community that actually wants to work together. That's not saying that the UK was negative. I'm just saying that people started appreciating my work more when I was known internationally, which sucks, but it's the truth. And like I said, I got a lot of respect for people like Tiger Style, who reached out to me. They were the first people that reached out to me here and said, "Look, man, we're doing some mainstream music here, and we'd love for a fellow Singh to come on board and paint with us." And that for me was my first stepping stone into getting into mainstream stuff. But I don't know how much our community is embracing. Like now, 2020, I love seeing it. You got things like Instagram. You see, just like Dharan said with ArtSeek, I think that's amazing. One of my other friends, Sikh Expo, he does the same thing. We never had that in 2010. When I say we, I'm acting like I'm 50 right now, man. But no, honestly, like I don't remember any artist, and I was in a lonely little space, not knowing. I remember saying to myself, like, how do I talk to an artist, a Sikh artist, about an exhibition? I don't know how to do an exhibition. I had to do it myself. But now I see a lot more artists coming on board, and I'm able to have conversations with them and trying to learn something new from them. And I feel like that embracement is so important. It doesn't matter how many followers you have. It doesn't matter what you are on Instagram. At the end of the day, we're all students, and that's what Sikh is, right? So I'm a student here in between everyone. I'm learning something new, and I feel like we just need to drop that whole idea of competition and start collaboration. And I think that's one of the best things I did. And I think through that avenue, I'm understanding that we're finally actually embracing Sikhi and the arts. Yeah.
Thank you very much. There were some great answers all around there. Did anybody else have anything to comment or follow-up questions? Great. So we'll move on to the next question. And this is, what are the challenges that Sikh artists face, and how easy is it to represent the community while pursuing success in the mainstream? I know this is an issue very close to your heart, Ashmi Kaur. So would you like to start off with that?
Is this on? I can speak loud anyway, so it's fine. Oh, it's on now. Okay, I'm going to focus on the second part of the question because I feel like the first part is going to be answered a bit later on in one of the other questions. So how easy is it to represent a community while pursuing mainstream success in the arts? So I'm going to talk about my experience, and I'm sure that there are also, I realise that people have got their names and saying like what their art form is, and I think that's really cool. Yeah, lost my train of thought, got distracted. I'm literally still distracted.
So we're going to
yeah.
focus on the second half of the question.
So focus on the second half of the question. So this is from my experience. So there's probably other people in the room that might have different experiences, or you might have similar experiences. I'd be really interested to know what your experience is because you're a performer. So yeah, this is my story, I guess. So for me, my background is that I trained at drama school, and anybody who knows what drama school is, it's like an intensive 3-year, typically 3-year program where they train you from like 20 million hours a day, 5 days a week, and in voice and movement and all of that. So you train to become a professional actor. And before, like, I was into Sikh, I really wanted to pursue that, and I auditioned for a drama school, and I got into a drama school in London, which was amazing, and it's still one of the most amazing experiences of my life. But during that journey, I did become more and more like into Sikh, and my love for Sikh grew, and it started to become really difficult because we know from like the industry, like films or TV programs or whatever it is, like I don't need to voice what the demands are of an actor because it's very clear, right? Like let's try not to, yeah. So for me, when I was in my final year especially, so by this point I'd been blessed with Amrit, and I did still want to pursue a career in acting. I was still quite like adamant on that. But in my final year, you have to do like loads of industry shows, and you have to take on like different roles and whatever it is. And industry comes in and they sign you and you get an agent and it's all great. But I really struggled because I started to really compromise my rate. So for me, like I was happy to keep my case uncovered, and like even like wearing my gara, like I'd wear a gara on another part of my body, like my shusted, I'd like hide that kind of thing. So for me, like I kind of realized during that I was sort of kind of like tiptoeing and realizing that I was becoming more and more distant from Sikh because I was more interested in like this worldly goal, I guess. And I was happy doing that at the time because I was really motivated to become a successful actor and represent, as a key word here, represent us in like the mainstream world kind of thing. But somewhere along the line, I think as well, what I really want to mention here is that when I was doing this, I don't want to make out I was a martyr and that I was alone or anything like that, but it's not like you can call another Gursikh actor and ask them like how to do it. Do you know what I mean? Like those people aren't out there. They're just not. So for me, I did have to figure out a lot of it by myself. And it really, really hit me quite quickly, especially when I was going to like meetings with agents and I was going to industry and they were like, oh, will you do this and will you do that? And I'm like, oh, no, like this is too much. And I'm going to be brutally honest as well. During that time, that's when Misuse Trust came out. So I know a lot of people in this room would have seen it. And when I watched that back, I was like, oh, this is really cool. But also like, whoa, what do I look like? Like, what is going on? Why do I look like this kind of thing? Because I was looking at myself, but that wasn't me. And for so long, like I hid behind playing a character and telling myself, oh, it's fine, it's a role, I can just uncover my gears and then like whip my butt back on later and it's going to be totally fine. But actually, doing Misuse Trust, which was an amazing experience, so I'm not bashing that, it's just that for me, it wasn't, I realized how distant I had become from like my true self. And I believe that all of our true self is when we're closer to Maharaj, right? When we're reflecting Maharaj more. And that was kind of where I went. So I did speak to Maharaj about that, and they decided that this wasn't the path for me. And I think as well within that, I was really like, one element is, oh, it's really hard being brown and trying to succeed in this industry when brown people are only getting jobs now, right? Like, how many times do we hear about brown roles being cast by white people? Like, so this was like 2-3 years ago, and that was kind of like the norm, and I feel like it still is a norm. So imagine being brown and then looking like this as well. Like, how many people are really going to give you a job? Like, how many people are actually have your best interests at heart? And that was the brutal truth that I really had to face during that time. And now, just to sum it up, I'm really, really glad that I don't do that completely. Like, if I do acting, I create my own roles. I create my own characters. I tell my own stories. I try my best to tell our stories and represent us the best that I can, which I'm probably not great at, but it's something that I'm really, really learning to do because it's so important. And I'm really lucky that I now get to use my art form to help other people and to help facilitate other people's healing. So at the moment I work in adult mental health, and it's really, really hard, but it's the most incredible experience, and I wouldn't change it for the world. And I definitely wouldn't change my journey of getting here. But I get to be in a room and I get to present myself as myself. And yeah, just to sum it up, I guess I've realized along the way that you have to adapt your art so it aligns with Sikhi. Like, and you have to be prepared for that as well. If you want Sikhi to be your core and to be the center of your life, then you've got to make those sacrifices and say, actually, this isn't for me. This is distancing myself from what's truly important. If I'm going to lose myself along the line and end up becoming a person that I don't even know when I look in the mirror, then it's not going to be worth it in the end. So yeah, the same thing whether you have an office job or if you're in the arts. If you have Gurmat at the center, then everything else is going to flourish. Everything else comes after Sikhi, right? So at the end of the day, I'm really, really grateful that my red kept me in the end.
Oh, that's great. Yes. Okay, sure. Thank you. Well, that was a great answer. It really can't be very easy as a Gursikh working in performing arts to represent the community. I know Inquisitive, you mentioned that you represent to the end, and also there's a kind of added almost pressure on you being quite a well-known celebrity as well. Maybe if you could speak about that, what kind of how easy is it to represent the community, and a little bit about the struggles of being in the public eye so much as well.
Ishmi, that was beautiful, by the way. That was very heartfelt. It is what it is. Not many people wanted to know me until I started working with someone. And that sucks as well, doesn't it? Like, it sucks. Before I was just a turban Sikh boy that does art or tries to do art. You mentioned all those names there, and then I became someone, and that sucks, right? But it is what it is. But it's really important for me and my inner self to remember who I am and what I'm doing it for. And it's a representation of a huge community, and forever it will be. I still struggle. 10 years on, I still struggle. I still don't feel as much as the followers and the mainstream and the names. It still is a very difficult thing to embrace. It's still very hard. A bit about my background is that I did my master's in illustration, and when I tried looking and applying for jobs, putting my portfolio out, I was to this, to that. And I knew it wasn't nothing to do with that. I knew it was because I'm wearing this on my head, you know what I mean? It was clear to say I'd walk into the room and people would instantly just be ready to say no to me. And that's when I decided to put my work online. Where was my mom, God bless her? She told me to share my work online. And I feel like the struggle's always there. The struggle's always there. But I feel like that's the challenge, and that's the challenge God wants me to do. And I'll forever continue to do that because He wouldn't give me a challenge I can't handle, right? So I love that. I love that. And based on what you mentioned in the second question, yeah, it's paranoia. Paranoia being in the public eye. I'm not gonna lie, like, it's great having the spotlight on. It's all nice. You see it on Instagram, you see it on Facebook, you see all these pictures. You kind of forget you're human sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. my dad gets followed when he drives my car. That's my fault for getting the number plate though. But small things like, can I have a selfie? Instead of, hey, Aman, how's your day? Do you mind if I take a picture? You forget you're human. And that's one thing I don't talk about as much. And I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet here, but it is what it is. You've asked the question. I'm kindly I'm posing my answer to you. Sometimes you have to turn it on. My manager's here right now, and she understands. I talked to her about this. She sees it. She understands it's hard. Like, it's a struggle, man. But with that said, you know, I never wanted to be I wanted to do the whole Banksy thing. Not my dog. My dog's name's Banksy as well. I wanted to do the whole Banksy thing where I didn't want people to know I was a Sikh illustrator. I don't know why. I don't know. I was just going. That was my phase. And then when they did realize who I was, it just went all fireworks, man. And at the time, I was quite, you know, I don't want to show my face. And then I realized, oh my God, my face is all over the place now. And I like that now. I love knowing that, you know, I'm able to be here at Sikh PA and work on this and actually talk and represent us and say that, yeah, man, we are working with Mesut Ozil. We are working with Madrid. We are doing this. This is us. It's not me. It's us. We're representing this, man. So whatever I do, whatever successes I do, it's not for me. It's for us. And I feel like if I continue to do that, I'm speaking for our whole community.
Thank you very much for such an honest answer as well. We've heard quite a lot about the struggles of representing Sikhi, but does anybody on the panel feel that it works to their advantage? You know, the Roop, you know, Daran Singh, you're nodding. Can I ask you, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, actually, it's been a bit of an advantage, really, because you kind of stick out. Like, so the kind of places where I've been working in the past, and we do presentations and we have to present design reviews and things like that. And basically you stick out. Everyone knew me as, oh, he's the Sikh guy from Birmingham, or he's the 3D guy from Birmingham. And I kind of used it to my advantage, actually, because people will not forget who you are. And so if you can show that you can do exceptional work, or have that confidence, and I think this is another thing we need to work on with our community, because we're always taught as Punjabi children, jab karke behna, like, innit? Don't talk out in front of your elders and don't stand.
My mum still says that.
Yeah, no, yeah, same here, like, innit? I'll still get tuppas as well. So we kind of like in that mentality as, oh no, we should be quiet and sit down and stuff. And it takes a little bit of while, because ultimately we're Punjabi and that revolution will still always come to the surface. And it kind of, we were always teaching kids, like we would be at the camps and we would teach kids about the stories, about the Shaheed things. And one thing that we used to say was, look, we are Sikhs, we do not give up. And so when we're telling the kids that, we've got to live that ourselves as well. And so when we're going out there in the workplace and stuff, we don't give up. It doesn't matter what people say to us or what doors people close, we do not give up. We keep going and we keep continuing to kind of persevere in our art, in what we do. And when people do shut those doors, like Ashmeet said earlier, yeah, we create our own platforms. We can create our own platforms. We can create our own. And 2015, I started my own business, and I've been these companies who at one point weren't giving me a chance. Yeah, now they're kind of knocking on our door, saying, "Oh yeah, we need this expertise." And I think a lot of it is about really working hard at your art. And I know there's a lot of artists out there who are struggling, and they work really hard and they works really well, and they're really kind of. It can turn bitter as well, in terms of like, why aren't I doing well? And then it does turn into that bit of competition thing that Aman was talking about, like, about, oh, why is he doing well? Why is it? And then it becomes like a bit not so great. And I think we need to get over that. And I think collaboration is the key, working with each other, helping each other. And, helping someone else or seeing somebody else be successful does not take away from your own success. And actually what I've seen is the more that you help other people, the more they're willing to help you. And, and I think Aman's, Inquisitive done a brilliant job in terms of, I go around and talking to the kids and we use him as an example. We say, look how well he's done. And, you look at him, he's like a role model for our children, to say that, look, if he can make it, and do these great things, then, we all got that chance. So, yeah, I think that while, we can talk about that, because we're Punjab, because we're Sikh, Baghdadi and that, like, innit. For me, like, innit, I've never been ashamed of having a Baghdadi. I'm actually really proud of it. And when I go out there, I behave in that way as well. And I find that the feedback that I get from the general white community or the places that I worked has always been positive. And the business that I run, it's incubated at the BCU Steam House in Birmingham. So it's their kind of incubator hub for new tech startups. And they, absolutely embrace the fact that people from different communities are coming in, and we're contributing and we're working with other people. And, I've been collaborating with some Muslim artists and, to do some, to work together and stuff. And I think that's where, when we start working with other communities as well who are in similar positions, I think that gives us a lot more power, you see, because if we go there and we say, oh yeah, I'm a Sikh, but if we go there, look, I'm a Sikh, and we've got a Muslim collaborator, and we've got a Polish collaborator, and we've got all these people, and we will have that strength in numbers. So one example is that I don't have that much artwork in it. Obviously, your work, got family and stuff, and we do try and do what we do. I've got a couple of pieces, another artist got a couple of pieces, we've got another guy who works in Morrison's, does amazing artwork. And what we found is if we can put our artwork together, we can actually do an exhibition. Can't do it on my own, yeah, but with these other people together, we can all show our work, yeah, and then create a platform. So I think more than anything, we need to start creating our own platforms, and start pushing our own stuff and saying, okay, if the platform is not available, if the opportunity is not available, then we need to create those opportunities. It is going to take, we're going to have to be brave. It's going to be scary and stuff. And, I've done things that I never thought I'd be able to do, but I was very lucky because I had a good friend, Daljit, who's a training kind of expert, learning and development. And he kind of really pushed me and questioned me. And I think that sort of stuff is what we're trying to kind of push now into younger artists, is to give them that support in terms of how to run your business, so rather than just being an artist, how are you gonna? And it doesn't necessarily mean. And I believe that if you are creative, inherently, you will find a way to be creative, So even if you're working on a building site, like my brother was an amazing artist, he's a plasterer, and he'll plaster a wall. And he will say, look how straight it is. And I mean, he's amazing, And so for me, when I was younger, I always wanted to be a sculptor. And I was like, but that's not something Punjabi kids do. That's something that middle-class white people do. And so I just put it to one side. But ended up, right, because I was working on computers all the time, I was modeling and sculpting in 3D. So I ended up doing the exact same thing, which is part of my nature. So if you're creative and you're thinking of giving up, or you're an artist and you're saying, look, I don't think I can do this, not working out, maybe you need to do things a little bit different. Because I really did dismiss all this business side of things. I didn't want nothing to do with it, money and stuff. I was like, no, I love doing my artwork. That's what I love doing. I'll lock myself in my room, do my 3D modeling, I'm happy, But the thing is, obviously, we got families to feed, we've got other things to do. And I found the reason for me running my business, was that I could actually help other people. I could give other people work, creative work. And one of the guys who works with me, he's got Asperger's and he doesn't like going out. So I'm able to send him work that he can do at home, and we can create. And I believe that you can run ethical businesses. Your business doesn't have to be just about, we're going to make a load of money. It can be about, actually, we're training people. So we have children, we have kids from the local college coming, and they work with us every Wednesday, and we teach them skills and stuff that they wouldn't necessarily have access to. So I think, all that kind of stuff is really important for us now as artists, as older people. I think I'm the oldest person on the panel anyway, but I think important now for us to kind of empower the next generation and say, okay, what can we do? What can we put in place? The things that we didn't have in place for us, how can we create that kind of? And I think events like today is a big part of that, innit?
That's great to hear. Thank you very much. So I wanted to ask you the question as well, how, what challenges do you face as a Sikh stand-up comedian, and also as a Sikh woman in the world of stand-up as well?
I think when you're this skin colour, you're always going to have issues if you're in the arts, in the mainstream arts. Doesn't matter what part of the arts that you are in this country. You are constantly going to be othered. You're going to be in rooms where all the gatekeepers are white, all of your colleagues are white. I've been been lucky enough to be part of TV projects for the BBC, for Channel 4, for Netflix, and I'm doing a table read and I'm the only brown person. And then somebody will walk in and you'll go, oh, there's another non-white person. Oh, right, they're doing the teas. And that is the truth. sadly, that's the world that we kind of live in. And one of the reasons I moved away from acting was because I was like, I don't want to play roles. I don't want to be terrorist wife, or shopkeeper wife, or honor killing victim, or junior doctor 1, junior doctor 2, junior doctor 3. And so I was like, I don't like, this is not my story. Like, I want to tell my story. I want to talk about, the challenges that we face, as Sikh women, as women of color. Like, so that's, for me, kind of making my own work, and I think you might agree with this, is very empowering, because we can kind of tell our own stories. And so if there's somebody there going, trying to knock down the doors of, TV production companies or whatever, or I'm trying to get gigs, or I'm trying to do this, it's like, carry on doing that. Absolutely, there needs to be enough of us doing that, and we need to get into the mainstream. But I'm telling you now, you're going to have to prove yourself like 10 times more than anyone else because you look like this. And but still do your own work. Like, still make your own work. Like, it's not easy. People will constantly try and, I did a play a few years ago. I wrote a play, and I was lucky enough that it was fortunate enough that it had 2 sold out national tours. We had one, so really, the stage, the stage newspaper came in. Obviously, it's some old white dude who's coming in and reviewing it, who, rather than writing about the content of my play, just commented on the audience skin colour. And I looked back at their reviews and I was like, "What? You don't do that when you go to the National, you don't do that when you go to the West End." But so I think that's the issue that we're always going to have in the arts. People are going to tell you it's not for you. Your colleagues will tell you it's not for you. Your parents might tell you it's not for you, or your extended family or whatever. But like you said, don't give up. It's not an easy thing to do, and I don't mean to kind of minimize the struggle of it by just saying don't give up. But if you're a creator, you create in whatever way that is.
I mean, it's hard enough making it in the mainstream as it is, but then with all of these extra, the skin color, the faith, and the gender as well, it makes it even more difficult. Singh Mahoon, what do you think? What are your thoughts on how easy it is to represent the community while trying to pursue mainstream success?
Yeah, I'm so happy that you guys are speaking before me, because it makes me feel a lot more comfortable, speaking about this openly. What are the challenges that Sikh artists face? So I had to think a little bit deeply about this one. Embracing the responsibility to advance people and communities who have historically been marginalized and underrepresented, by amplifying their stories, by building a culture that reflects their true reality, or perhaps the most powerful thing, giving these people a space to speak their own stories. Which means building a personal connection and looking at myself with the lived realities of our struggle, being a racialized community, dislocated from Punjab to the point we see Britain as home, and calling ourselves British without critically reflecting on what that means. That it's a lot to do. And then on top of that, trying to build your Sikhi, your Jivan, connecting to Gurbani, doing your Nitnem and Rayat, like Benji said before, connecting to our Shastras so that we can embody what it means to be Sikh. That's part of the challenges that I feel I face as a Sikh artist. Now, how easy is it to represent the community whilst pursuing mainstream success in the arts? It's like competing for oxygen with mainstream Sikh voices that are forced to be representative by whiteness. That's the challenge. It seems you can't just be a brown artist. Whiteness and the colonial attitudes that underpin that logic force people of color to be representatives. The only people I consider representatives of Sikhi are those that are plastered in our homes, that are in our gurdwara, that are in our ardas, and we remember them every day. It's our shaheeds. And so what is the mainstream is something I just wanted to talk about. What is mainstream created? And it's through state violence and genocide. An accepted standard of what it is to be a Sikh in the mainstream has been set. You have Sikh as the butts of jokes, or wannabe gangsters that want to be karkus. So unless you're making fun of yourself, or your parents, or your elders, or brown people in general, or you're trying to convince your community to kill itself off, it's a bit difficult to find space for yourself. You're not allowed to be a whole Sikh in the media. You have to be a broken Sikh. You have to fit into the violent box of what it is to be of Indianness, and then force yourself to be a Punjabi in an acceptable way. You know, another thing is Sikh art. When we talk about Sikh art, often people call it religious, and it's boxed off as something religious. It's not just art. But those same people who refer to Sikh art as religious call Sikhiya culture. And these boundaries are marked out by state violence, racism, and fascism that the state enables. Now, I don't know if last year any of you know Diljit Dosanjh was supposed to do a show in the US, and he was doing, one of the promoters was someone that the Indian government didn't want him to work with. So what they did, they applied pressure to him. He cancelled the show, which was a massive show. And then also after that had to talk about his loyalty to India. That's the pressure. That's the pressure they exert. These are the boundaries that are drawn by violence. There was Taddi by Nirmal Singh Chawla, who was doing Taddiwara, normal, Sikh. Taddi is as normal as Kirtan, but it's been pushed out of the mainstream. It's been demonized. He was killed for his Taddi. So that's the boundaries that the Indian government set. Where do we as Sikh push back? So I don't know if anyone knows about the Gurdas Man incident, where he spoke about Punjabi in the way that he did. And the Sikh Qaum pushed back. Now, it's through that that we can see and confront the mainstream and the spaces that they create and manufacture the culture that has normalized Indian state propaganda in regards to Sikh expression. As you can see now with Khalistan and how it's spoken about and thought about, thanks to the work of the Sikh Jathebandiya that are working tirelessly like NSYF, Khalistan Activist Federation, and the SLF in our ocean of diaspora. And then the people who work to give us spaces like Sikh PA here, Naujwani and Nishan. Honestly, like being where I'm at, it's funny to see what the mainstream does. And I see it in this whole different light. I see the whole music industry trying so desperately hard to copy Khalistani music. Shahidi music had Punjabi and hip hop on lock. One of the biggest singles from an era bygone was a single by Beant. It was called Beant and Satwant Da Badla by True School and Pavitr Singh Pasla. And the first Immortal Productions remixes, that was over 10 years ago. So, like, what's mainstream success when the mainstream are just trying to copy the people they're trying to silence? And like, it's a beautiful thing to me. Like, I'm working with those people that are 10 years ahead of what the mainstream are trying to do now, trying to pretend to be Kharkus, trying to divert what it means to be Sikh. That's it.
Great. It's a very thought-provoking answer. Is anybody in the audience, does anybody have anything to add to that? Yeah, we see a hand up there. Could we ask for a microphone?
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. This is a question from Jasveer Singh, Sikh Press Association officer. He's on holiday currently, but he's watching via the live stream. He asks, is there a pressure to represent, this is for everyone, is there pressure to represent both sides? Sikhs want you to represent your community, and the white audience want you to be the Asian, token Asian. So that goes to all of you.
Who would like to take that? I think so. You've got an answer for that?
In a word, yeah. Yeah, there is. You know, there's a reason I don't talk explicitly about Sikhi in my stand-up in terms of material. And that's not because I'm like, oh, I don't want to alienate the audience. It's, you know, it's like I don't want to misrepresent people, you know. I don't want to, the pressure of representing like the whole of Sikhi, like that is huge, and you know, and like that's not a pressure that I kind of want. And also, white people don't have that pressure. No one's looking at Michael McIntyre going, well, you represent all middle class white people, you know. Michael McIntyre gets to go and do jokes about bus stops like he's been doing for the last 10 years, and that's all good. But like, I think and I don't know if you guys have had this experience, is like how community can be incredibly supportive and lovely, but also incredibly vicious as well if you make the smallest mistake, or even in their mind, you know, if you perceive to make a smallest mistake. And then obviously the issue is when you're in those white spaces, which are generally seen as the mainstream, then if you're not the token funny Asian doing your voice in your head bubble, then they're not interested because they can't put you in that bracket.
Could you speak with the microphone, please?
So I want to do stand-up comedy as well. But most of my stuff, like I've only done it twice, and it's just by complete accident at the basics of Sikh camp. And
This is your friend who would... Is this what you were telling me about?
No.
No, okay.
I was.
Well, they're everywhere.
so I was sort of one of the reasons actually why I've come down today is Devinder Pal Singh told me to, you know, he's going to introduce me to you later. And
Oh, that's nice.
it's a bit
Didn't tell
awkward
me
now.
about this. What?
I've got a friend, her name's Suk. It started like that. But, so one of the things that I want to do personally, I've only thought about it very kind of small, is like kind of get families back in a room together. A lot of the times everybody's got like their own Netflix, like somebody's watching something in their room that's got a gun in it, whatever, you know? But they're really good programs, innit? Yeah. So so what's happened is I've seen it in my own household as well, and people I know as well, that you know we're kind of separated in what we want to see. So the whole family aspect of sitting down together and watching like a TV program together and being able to, I remember when I was a kid, like even now actually with certain Punjabi movies, I can actually sit down with mum
Yeah.
and dad. But then like when I was younger, I watched EastEnders with mum, but now I could never. I find that really uncomfortable. My mum's a Mritari as well, and it's just yeah. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is like, as a stand-up comedian, do you feel like there is a certain element where you kind of have to like be a bit savage, yeah? If like you have to be X-rated, or can you or have you kind of decided that you're not going to go past certain boundaries?
I think that's the traditional view of stand-up, is that we're going to go to a stand-up show and there's going to be a man on stage and he's going to be funny and he's going to tear into everyone and he's going to get really personal and he's going to roast everyone. That's cool, and there's comedy clubs up and down the country that do that. I personally, just as a person, not even as an artist, find that really uncomfortable, and I don't really, it just seems a bit like a blood sport. I'm like, just go outside and just kick the hell out of each other. What are you doing? To me, like my comedy is like storytelling and observational, and I like to kind of talk about our culture specifically, or talk about being a woman, or talk about like my family or whatever, in a very light way, but kind of treading that fine line where I would never want to be seen as like making fun of, you know, the older generation, but also just, for me, it's more of a celebration of who we are, rather than kind of picking on people and going, oh, you look like you work in a bank or whatever, like, you know, the awful things that these comedians say. I would say that if you want to do stand-up, or if anybody here wants to do stand-up, like I'd never, and I was saying this to my friend earlier, like never let somebody tell you what it is. You know, you can, you know, I tour regularly with a Sikh comedian, Amritari guy, you know, and he's often like, I'm going to go find a room and do my Dada Sahib Lapat now, like, you know, and then go on stage and smash it, you know, and it's fantastic. So the two kind of can coexist, but it's up to you to kind of find your path within the industry. But there is a reason why, you know, the most well-known comedians of our time, like the Asian comedians like, you know, Nish Kumar, Ramesh, you know, they don't talk about culture or faith or whatever, you know, and that's why they're seen as acceptable. So they're the acceptable brown person, the good immigrant.
Yeah, we've got a couple of hands coming up here. Thank you.
Do you think with the issue of representation of the Sikh community, because there is a lack of representation, there is a pressure on individuals who do step up to be the authoritative voice? And is the solution to that perhaps, and I'm just curious to hear what the panelists think, is there is a need for a diversity of representation of what it means to be Sikh? I've been wearing my kara for a while. I grew up speaking Punjabi, going to the Gurdwara. I felt uncomfortable with even identifying as Sikh for a long time because I felt I didn't fit the model of what it meant to be Sikh. And I think what I'm trying to do with my work as an actor, writer, and filmmaker is try to create a diversity of representation. I'm just really curious to hear how others feel about that. Yeah, given your knowledge.
Yes, great question. Does anybody want to take that one?
I think, nice question, man. I think it's important to understand the history and what it means to be a Sikh in the diaspora and take everything into consideration. We've been through, I think it's around 170 years we've been under colonial rule, be it the British or be it the Indians or Pakistan. So it's important to understand that lived reality before then asking the Sikh community to diversify itself and put the onus not on the Sikh community for its self-hate and things like that. Understand the impact that colonization has had on the Sikh community.
I think we had another question here from the audience.
Hi, my name's Dal. I'm head up diversity at the Football Association, and some people would argue I'm in the wrong room today because this is about the arts. But there is a massive crossover between sport and the arts. You know, arts, creative sector in terms of music, art in terms of what you do, stand up, whatever it might be. We know in sport that Asians generally are underrepresented, and if you look at the Sikh community, I mean, it's very, very small. Less than 1% of all professional footballers right now are anywhere near football as a whole. Goes up slightly in grassroots football. So the challenge we have, sport and arts in particular, two industries, two sectors where Asian representation seems to be massively lacking. And so the question really is, you know, with 3-4 generations in now, my family's been here since the 50s. And so I've never used my Asianness, Punjabi-ness, being a Sikh, in any way to get ahead, but also to let me not get ahead. And so what is the biggest challenge for you in the creative sector? Is it about our people, and I say, you know, the Sikh community, Asians in general, devaluing the fact that art is not a good profession, for example, because obviously our mothers and fathers want us to be doctors and lawyers and engineers and all of that kind of stuff. You know, there's a stereotype there. Or is it more about the barriers in getting into mainstream, what we call mainstream, positions whilst you can be yourself? Because I think they're two different things. You can still get ahead and not have the support, because if you're talented, you know, we say in football, if you're a talented footballer, you'll get spotted. You'll become a professional because it's all about you. So what is the biggest challenge for each of you? Is it the support from your own communities, or is it the fact that there is an institutional barrier of some kind that is stopping you from progressing?
I can't answer all of that question, but this word like representation or underrepresented, I don't know how relevant it is to any other art forms, but in the performing arts, like being on stage or being an actor or whatever, you've got this one thing where it's like, you can use your identity to an advantage kind of thing, like, oh, you look different and therefore you're going to be put up for those smaller, like those roles or whatever it is when they're looking for a BME actor, right? But then the other thing is like, oh, am I just getting picked just because like I'm the only brown person I'm auditioning? Like, do you feel like that? Like, oh, we're a niche and like people kind of...
Just on that point.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I think a lot of my kind of fellow white actors would say like, oh, you guys are getting all the parts now, which is not the truth. Like, you just turn your TV on at any given moment, you'll know that's not the truth. I think also with what you're saying, like you being cast as a token brown face and stuff happens a lot. But like you said earlier, because obviously acting is, and performing in general, is so much about appearance, you know, the people that they will cast will be the kind of Bollywood standard of beautiful, you know, even if they are a downtrodden victim of abuse in EastEnders, like they're still going to be like a perfect kind of quite westernized beauty kind of ideals, you know. So I don't know, sorry, I just need to make that point to say that is...
I don't know, you just made me think like underrepresented, represented, we're either going to be a niche and like we don't know if we're being picked because we look different, And then you don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because are you actually being picked because of like that you're good and that you're talented and that you work hard, or because they just need you to tick a box? And that is the brutal, honest truth about my experience in the industry, possibly other people's as well. Like I said, I don't know how relevant it is to other different types of artists, but you really do feel it in the world of acting.
I think. Oh yeah, go on. No, I was just going to say, with it talking about barriers within our own community, you will get at the end of every single solo show I've done so far. I will guarantee you, if I leave the stage and then I come back into the room at the end of the show, there will be at least one Punjabi woman up on that stage taking a selfie, and I will always speak to them and I'll be like, "Why are you taking a selfie on an empty stage?" And every single time it'd be the same story. My mum said I couldn't do this. This is my only chance to get on stage. My BB said I couldn't do this. This is my only chance to get on stage. And it like breaks my heart when I talk to them and they're like, I'm happy and I've got this and I've got that. But I'm like, but you were never encouraged. You were, cut off at, some of them at 10, 11, 12 to like never have had that opportunity, which is like, deeply kind of heartbreaking to me anyway. So I think it really does, like you were saying, it starts with our children. Like it starts with that generation to kind of build them up and say, this is not a bad profession. You're not being a clown. You can do some real good. And, the more I do stand up and stuff, the more I realize it's a fantastic way to connect with people. I talk a lot about mental health, and it's become like a really fantastic way to connect with people who are maybe struggling with their own mental health at the time. So I think we need to broaden our horizons and broaden our perspective on what it means to be in the arts. And it's not other. And look, I don't know about the other panelists, but I know that from now till the day I die, I will always get an uncle that will come up to me and will be like, "What's your other job?" And you'll be like, "No, this is my job." There's no shame in having a day job, but it's like, this is my job, this is what I do. And they look really confused. In fact, you asked me that earlier, if this was my only job. So sick burn there.
Yeah, was it Dao? That was Dao, yeah? Fantastic question. For me, I just want to touch up on that. It was the first point you made. My dad and mum, they understood about, more so my dad understood the arts more, being a calligrapher and playing music. So he always respected and understood that. I used to, well, it's kind of funny, I used to tell my dad I want to be an illustrator. And so he'd go and tell his friends I'm an architect. He didn't understand what illustration was because it's the pinnacle of creativity. But till this day, I still get uncles asking me, "How's that doodling thing you're doing? How's that going for you? Is it still going?" And I know they're doing it in a way where they're trying to, kind of put it to shame. You're still doing that drawing thing. And on a side note, their sons are lawyers and dentists, and it's a shame because I'm like, "Yeah, uncle, it's going well. The doodling thing's going well." And it's the same thing at university when I was doing my masters. There was like so many of our people in our community doing the arts, but when it came to getting the degree and everything, it was more so. So what are you doing now? Like, what's your plans? Oh, my parents don't appreciate it. My parents don't want me doing it no more. They don't want me to do this. I've got to look for something else. And now they're all doing like building work. Well, they're happy, and I'm happy to hear that they're happy. But such talented kids, man, who just put it to shame. So for me, it is the support movement. And again, no disrespect to any panelists and what they're saying, I respect that. But for me, and understanding it and still going through the whole doodling thing, it's the support.
Yeah. So is it a perception thing then? Is it? So in sport, we say, footballers, that there is a stereotype potentially. I'm not saying it's true, but there is a view that if you're Asian, you're too short, you eat too much fried food, you haven't got the stature to be a footballer, which is completely untrue because there are players that get to that professional level. So is it about perception and the fact that you guys in the arts, you come from, you're trying to pursue a career that hasn't been traditionally seen as acceptable by the Sikh community? Yeah. And therefore your challenge is to break taboos, break barriers.
What kind of money are you going to get from drawing cartoons, right? That's what I was told by my uncle. Like, what are you going to get out of that? So it is a perception thing for me, man. And that's the experience I've gone through. I don't know if anyone wants to share their thoughts. I think Taran does.
Can I just, I just wanted to say that my parents still don't know what I do, yeah. They don't know. They're like, he does something with computers, yeah, but we don't know what it is, yeah. He just sits there a lot. I just say, I think it's a bit of both, you know. I think it's a bit of both. We have certain expectations from our community that we have to fulfill. Obviously, they expect you to kind of get married, have kids, and be able to sustain your family and stuff like that. But then I think that there's also that kind of, there is a bit of like, that systemic kind of, oh, you don't belong here, or you don't really fit in and stuff. But I think that at the same time, there's a lot of fear in our community as well of trying. So I see a lot of young people who kind of, we have to push them like in it. We have to say, look, you're good enough to submit your work for that exhibition. Why aren't you submitting it? And they're like, oh, no, I don't think more stuff is good enough. And I was the same as well. And the G pushed me a lot in terms of, no, you should get your stuff out there. And so I think it's a bit of both, but I think that it's a bit of fear on our part as well of trying and being the only one or being the first one. And I think that we need to work with our young people on that. And also, like what you're doing is pretty amazing as well, is that you're there and you're able to kind of do something about it and help in it. But I also wanted to say to Jasap Aji as well, the question that you said, what I really wanted to say was that if we look back at the Guru's times, yeah, their strength was in the diversity of the community that was around them. They had people who were Persian poets, they had people from different parts of the country. And I think our strength, we lose a lot when we kind of don't include people, who kind of who relate to us like in it, who feel as though they're Sikh, yeah. And it would really hurt me to hear from you if you felt that you were in any way kind of not included or didn't feel a part of us like in it, because obviously you don't look the part. And I think that we have to be very, very, and we try to do this as well. We don't have any expectations of our artists that they have to have a Guradari. We've got artists who are Muslims and Hindus as well, who do great, Sikh artwork, people who aren't religious at all. And I think that we shouldn't judge or put a criteria of what you have to be to call yourself a Sikh or a Sikh artist. I think that the gurus were open enough that anyone who came to them, they were welcoming, and I think that we need to kind of do that as well. And I think our strength is in that diversity of having people like yourself with us, because I think that's a big advantage. I think it gives us a lot of strength having different people from different backgrounds. And like I said before, we have found that when we are approaching these kind of arts organizations and foundations, when we go 2 or 3 or 4 different types of people going along and saying, look, we're all having the same issues. So, I mean, you probably got other Asian communities having similar issues as well. When we can do that, I think that's where our strength is going to be like in it. And we need to open up a bit more and be more welcoming and a bit more like Guru Nanak Dev Ji was, as he saw everyone as one in it. And I think that is the way forward.
That's a really great point. I think, historically in the Guru's Darbar, you wouldn't only just get various types of Sikhs, you would get various types of non-Sikhs as well. And that's not something we really see a lot of today, in the Gurudwara. So I think that diversity point is a very, very important one. I know us at Everything's 13, when we have our Katha at Park Avenue Gurdwara every Sunday, we have various types of, we've got people of different races who come, we've got people who are different stages of their journey into Sikhi, and it's a beautiful thing. So I think that's something we should really seek to encourage even more. Did anybody else want to add to that? Okay, great. So the next question we have is another one from the audience. Harinder Singh will...
So we'd just like to ask, what are the challenges in earning a living in the arts?
Yeah, that's a really important part of this conversation, is like, it's one thing to actually be an artist, but it's another thing to actually make a living as an artist. How do you kind of cope with that? How do you overcome that? Would you like to go first?
Yeah. So I don't do my art to earn a living, so I can't really comment on that. Nor is monetizing my expression part of my strategy. Like, I make music because of my love for the Pavitr Shaheeds. But still, my art has presented me with loads of opportunities. Like, I'm working on a score for an SLF documentary, one of the biggest best projects I've ever worked on, and it's coming out in June. But they spoke to me because of my love for indigenous music. I work in Rag Kirtan, so the whole score is going to be done in Rag. Everything is going to be using that, not ancient knowledge, but our Sikh way of connecting and spreading emotion. So on that, I don't really know about that side of things, but I do empathize with like my fellow Sikh who are struggling to work and express themselves in a patriarchal, racist, white supremacist, capitalist world that forces you into boxes and forces you into stereotypes and forces you to like completely box your entire existence.
I think a lot of people in the arts will want you to work for free. This is what Justa and I were saying earlier. There will be a lot of, and that not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody's in a position to do that. But likewise, like what you said, like, you know, you don't always have to monetize your art either. Like you can do it for the love. You can do it for a bigger cause. I mean, live with your parents for as long as you can. Well, I'm 35 and I'm not moving out anytime soon. But, you know, it is, you know, you're freelance. You know, we've all got costs and we've all got, you know, living to make. You know, some of us might have families to support, we might have dependents and all sorts of responsibilities and stuff. And, you know, people do it in very different ways. And from an acting perspective, people end up doing a lot of kind of 0-hour contract work, because how else are you going to kind of fit that around auditions and things like that? So, you know, before I moved home, before I kind of started taking my creative career seriously, I worked 5 part-time jobs. And I ended up having a breakdown, and then that's one of the reasons why I moved home, because I was like, I can't, like, who can live there, like do 5 different jobs and do your creative job on top of that, and go to auditions and be your, you know, best creative self at all times, you know. So I think there's a lot of pressure there. I don't think there's like one kind of real answer for it. You know, obviously don't go into the arts to make money, because that would be a very silly thing to do. Like, you know, you might end up making money as a byproduct of it, but you know that I'm sure everybody here knows that it's not the one if you want to make coin. So yeah, I think, you know, it's a struggle. I'm still figuring it out myself. A lot of people are still figuring out themselves. You end up doing all sorts of things. You end up having a portfolio career. You end up, you know, having to make maybe certain sacrifices about where you are in your life with your lifestyle, etc., etc. I think there is, you know, a severe lack of kind of funding in, like, you know, I did the Edinburgh Fringe Festival last year, and that is so, like, you cannot get funding for that, you know, and then people go up and go, oh, why is every artist here white, middle class, in their 30s, and their parent is a TV producer? Why is that? We need more diversity in the arts. And then there's like me, working class Punjabi Sikh woman, who's like because there's no funding, there's zero funding, and you know, from that kind of perspective, it can lead to like huge issues with people being real. It's a real catch-22, because you're like, I want to go to the Fringe Festival because this is what comedians should do, or what artists should do, or theatre makers should do, because it's a great platform. It's almost like a trade show, you know, for people to kind of show what they can do. But yeah, I don't have 10 grand spare, which is the average cost. So there's people spending a lot more to go, and, you know, don't have a spare 10 grand to do it. If I did, I wouldn't live at home. But so I think there's a lot to unpack there, but I guess there's no kind of easy answer. You just end up having to do a lot of work, and for a lot of people, it is at the detriment to their health, like physical and mental.
That's a really interesting point you made there about living at home with your parents, because the society that we live in kind of looks down on that, as though it's a bad thing to live with your parents as they're getting older and they're getting to that age where they need somebody to look after them. They don't really see, you know, the value in that, the beauty of that. Inquisitive, I wanted to ask you this question as well, in terms of, you know, making a living in the arts. You know, did you set out to make a living when you decided to become an illustrator, and how did you cope?
It's a funny story. Like I said, did my masters, felt on top of the world, gonna get a job easily. You know, it's gonna be amazing. Can't wait. Rejected for whatever reason. Like I said, my mom told me, God bless her, told me to put my work online and see what happens. put my work online. I did an illustration for myself of Bhagat Singh. And I don't know, then when Facebook, 10 years ago, someone happened to come across my page. I had 10 fans then. I thought I made it, man. I was like, sick. And he was like, can I buy that off you? And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. Just give me £10. That's how much it's going to cost to get it produced on canvas. And then he took a picture of it, and his family in Canada ended up saying, well, how much is that? I want one. And he's like, yeah, this guy from East London, he's sending them from Tenno, man. I'm like, no, man. Now I've got to do shipping rates, man. And then that person's family, obviously, words started going around. And then I got an email saying, can you draw Guru Gobind Singh Ji in the same way you done Bhagat Singh? And then that was a catalyst for so many other things. And if I'm honest, after 2 years of doing Inquisitive, it wasn't about the art anymore. I forgot who I was. It was all about the money. It was like, how can I now do this? I became a people pleaser. And it's important to be here on panels like this because I want to be honest. There's no point of lying about it, right? And I did. I forgot about who I was. I forgot what is it that I've been given. And then I had a realization where I got sick of it. I got sick of being this person who's doing things for money. And I actually realized that, why did I start what I started? And then I kind of had to travel. I kind of lost myself to find myself, and I realized that actually it's great. I'm very fortunate people want to buy the artwork and it talks to them and they feel expression and they feel it in some way. But it's a weird one for me. It's now I'm setting my own projects. Like I said, my manager's there. We get a lot of work, but we get to decide like, what do I want to put my attention in that's going to make me enjoy what I do? For example, we went out to Oslo, we did a massive painting on a wall. I wanted to do it because I wanted the experience. I wanted to enjoy painting on a massive building. Whereas there's another project where we might be getting so much money for it, but am I going to enjoy it? No. So for me, it's setting my own task, remembering who I am, realizing why I started what I did, and also remembering not to sell canvases for £10, especially if they're going to Canada. Not a good idea, man.
Thank you very much for that. Taran Singh, did you want to?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I said earlier. I mean, we speak to a lot of young artists, and also because we kind of help out teaching at some of the colleges, universities as well. We're speaking to young people who are coming into kind of digital arts and these types of things. And what I usually advise them to do is like, look, you've come out of uni, you might not necessarily have the skills that the industry is looking for yet. So what to do is get a part-time job or work on the side and start to build up your portfolio. And I did the same thing. I was working for a business, and I started my business on the side, doing it on the evenings and weekends. Slowly, I started working 3 days a week and doing my business for 2 days. And then eventually it grew to when I could just leave work and run my own business. And I think that I was speaking to an artist the other day, and this is a prime example. And like Omar just said, they're selling your prints for £10, and he was doing artwork for somebody for like £150 for each image. And I said to him, well, how long is that going to take you? And he said, maybe 1 to 2 days. And I said, well, have you worked out, what your daily rate is? What do you need to survive? And it was just like basic kind of business principles that he just did not understand. I said, do you give them like a proposal with a project scope? And, are you kind of, how are you protecting yourself from them coming back and saying, oh, no, I want it completely done again from the beginning? And none of these things were in place. And it's kind of like, okay, look, we need to talk now, innit? And we need to go through this. We need to work out. Because the thing is, if you're getting paid less than working in Morrison's, then you might as well better off work in Morrison's and do your artwork for the fun of it, And it's about kind of teaching them the importance of understanding these other kind of principles and things. I've had to learn these as well. I was completely kind of against it and stuff. But I've had to learn these things, but I found that they're actually quite beneficial. And if we can teach people what their value is, and another thing is, another thing I said to him was that if you don't value your work, how are other people going to value it? So if you put your prices down or you're working for free, you're already devaluing your work, innit? I mean, you should be working for free if you're going to be getting some sort of benefit out of it, not just some uncle who's promised that he's going to give you some exposure, yeah? But some actual, you know, and thing is, when you value your time and you go somewhere and you say, no, actually, look, my time's worth this, and if you don't think it's worth that, then that's fine. I'd rather sit at home and do my own, like, have fun doing my own artwork. And it's like, there you go. And, you know, and it's about finding those people who do value it. And if you stop wasting time on the people who are trying to devalue you, you start to find the people who are going to value your work. And you know what? And as soon as you start to do that, you change your perception of yourself and and the way that you are. So rather than just being an artist or a freelancer, see yourself as, okay, if you're really serious about making this into a living, then you need to start seeing yourself as a business, and how are you going to market this business, and how are you going to do all this. And it's all stuff that I really didn't want to do. Like, and I was not really interested in. I was just, you know, happy doing my thing. But it's stuff that I've had to learn to be able to kind of sustain what I do creatively. And do it as a job. And I've got to say that the best feeling ever was getting paid to do something that I love doing. Like, and that is the best feeling ever. And it's a long journey, but I just say to people, you got to have that resilience, and that's one thing that we got to say. Because even my kids, when they come to me and they do a drawing or they do something and they say, oh, you know what, it's not good, it's not as good as Inquisitive or anything like that, because they look at his page and stuff. And I said to them, well, look, you know what, how long have you been doing it? You only been doing it a short while. You just need to keep going in it. And I said, this is a thing that develops slowly, and you keep on working at it, and you keep being positive, and you keep going, and you keep going, and you see them, you know, keep going back to the drawing board and still working. And I think that, one thing that we're talking about in ArtSeek now is to actually do not art classes for artists. They don't need art classes. They need like business classes and management classes, and, you know, how to write bids, you know, like Benji was saying, you know, how to write arts bids and that. And like Baji was saying, like, he's actually in the Football Association, so he can actually give advice to young people who are interested in going that way and encourage them. Because to be fair, a lot of artists out there who are struggling, all they're looking for is just somebody to say, you know what, keep going. You know what? That's all you need, just a little bit of encouragement, just somebody say, you know what, you're doing okay, keep going in it. That's all you need sometimes, you know.
You mentioned the artwork of your children. I've seen Baji's children's Instagram accounts, and I can vouch, safely say it's really, really good. There's a couple of really great artists.
Baji, that's the other thing as well. Like, they're kids, and they, like, I didn't put my artwork up for ages. Like, and I was like, nah, you know, we're really like scared and like, what's gonna happen? But like, they don't have that. Like, they're like, yeah, I'm gonna put my artwork on there. Yeah, somebody's gonna pay me to do this and that. And you know, it's good to see that they've got that confidence. Yeah. They've got that confidence, and they've got that like audacity to say, yeah, you know what, I'm going to do this.
Great, thank you very much for that. And Banji, what are the challenges that come when it comes to earning a living in the industry?
I don't really feel like I've got a lot to say after everybody's answers, because it's really, I think what's really clear is that everybody's obviously got their own path, and and everybody's comfortable doing what they do and have different relationships with their artwork, which I really, really respect. For me, I think I'm like a little bit in between. Like, sometimes I do stuff just because I want to do stuff. Like, I might create something and I want to put it out there, or there might be like a really, like, kids camps are like my favorite thing ever. Like, honestly, like, it makes me so happy, but I don't like charge or anything like that. I ask them to like pay for my travel because I'm like a broke student, do you know what I mean? But as in, like, I don't have that expectation, but that's my choice. And there are some people that would like to, you know, that would charge for their time if they're doing a kids camp, and I respect that as well. I think another part of it though is because for me it's like, well, I have trained in this, like, I am a professional actor, if you can be a professional actor in this. I do want people to respect that. And so if I am doing, whether it's stage or like I get asked to do a lot of voice work, especially within our community, I do charge, because I'm like, well, come on, like, I've worked really hard for this, and I do deserve people to respect that and respect my time, and that I know my craft, like, I know what I'm doing. Talking into a mic, like, and doing a voice recording isn't the easiest thing in the world. It might seem really straightforward, but unless you know what you're doing, it's difficult, right? And so I'm kind of in the balance. in between of like what you said and then also like what some of you other guys said. But I think respect is like a big thing, and I do think it's important that we do respect when people do need to be paid. We do need to make a living, and if somebody chooses they want to do something for free or however they want to phrase it, that's their choice as well. Like, just respect every individual artist and approach them separately. So don't have expectations that we're all going to have the same answer and approach, because clearly we don't. Everyone's figuring it out and they are comfortable with what they're comfortable with, really.
Thank you very much, Benji. We are slightly running over time, so with that in mind, we've come to our final question, which is one that was sent through by an artist who isn't able to be here today. An artist called Dubtition spoke to me about this event and had his reservations about it, wondering, what's next? We're all in this room now. We're talking. We're having a great discussion. Afterwards, is Sikh PA? Are we going to go and pat ourselves on the back and just say, that was job well done? Now we go on to the next event or the next topic. And how can we kind of nurture and foster creativity within the community, especially amongst new artists and young artists? So from a Sikh PA perspective, like as I said earlier, we were established for you, the Sangat, and obviously there's lots of young artists and new artists here today. And many of you are probably trying to reach out to the media, trying to get your work seen and get a contact with somebody at a media organization. Feel free to reach out to us. You can go through our email, which is media@sikhpa.com, or I've got a whole bunch of business cards here. Take one, and get in contact with us. We're here to serve you. We're here to put you guys in contact with the media. And we can also provide media training and offer support and advice, especially if it is a Bantik project. And on top of that as well, a really, really important part of this evening is to have all of us here in the same room. We've got our name tags with your name and what it is that you are interested in terms of art. That's there as an icebreaker, so you can actually go up to somebody. Don't feel shy or nervous. Introduce yourself. Come out of here with at least one person's contact details. So I also want to put that same question to our panel as well. How can the Sikh community help new artists and better support creative talents? Suk, if you could go first.
I feel like that question we've kind of answered already, how we can help each other. I think in terms of today, like I understand the question where it's like, well, where do we go from here? To me, tonight is already a success because we're all here and we're all together and we're talking about this. And it would be an even further success if there was somebody in this room, no matter what part of the arts they want to go into, if that's spurred them on to keep going on. So like, to me, that is a huge success already. That is creating something that has the potential to change not only the life of the person who's chosen to kind of continue pursuing their art or to start pursuing it, but also the lives of everybody around them as well. So,
thank you. Angie, do you want to say?
Okay. Something that was touched on earlier. Let's think about what Sikhi is anyway. So if we take it to, we think about Gurbani. So let's try and do Santya. Let's try and learn Ragirtan, Shastra Vidya, Gatka. What are they? Yeah, this is who we are. Let's not forget that.
A lot of people don't see the kind of connection between learning Santya and actually prospering in whether it's the arts or whether it is, whatever career field you choose. Could you kind of expand on that a little bit?
I think what I'm trying to say is, I mentioned it earlier, like if we feed our Sikhi, everything else is going to follow. Yeah. And it's like, oh, like you're saying that again, because I say this stuff all the time, but it's the truth. Because literally, like it was explained earlier, nobody goes to the Godra and listens to Ragirtan. Yeah, that is a fact, because we don't have access to that, because that's something that we've lost through the years. Because people prefer to listen to Kirtan, to Bhangra tunes. That's acceptable now. We're not, Santya isn't stressed enough, and if we don't pronounce Gurbani properly, we're never going to get that laha. We're never going to be able to build that connection with Maharaj. Maharaj isn't even going to listen to our Bani if we can't even pronounce our Bani properly, because then it's not even worthy of that opportunity. So these are arts within ourselves. Gurbani is art, is poetry, we sing Gurbani, we sing Kirtan, Kavishri. It's already been covered, but it really does go back down to that, and focusing on our own Jivan and how we can connect higher to Maharaj. So that's the first thing, accepting that it is a real core aspect. Art is a real core aspect of Sikhi, and it is everywhere we look. Regardless of us, even if none of us pursue art any further today, which obviously isn't going to happen, art in Sikhi is still going to be there, right? So we've got to accept that and do the right things to build our connection with that further. And then secondly, on a more... No, that's not the right phrasing. Secondly... we should create opportunities, because we've said it a few times, but we don't feel represented in mainstream, and I know we've had this conversation already, but we were saying a lot, we don't see people that look like us on a stage or taking up space in certain different creative areas. So therefore, we need to pull together and create opportunities for ourselves so we can lift ourselves up and tell our stories the way that we want to. Something that I've thought to myself recently is like, why can't we have arts council, Sikh arts council, stuff like that? Like, why can't we go to a panel of people and represent our ideas? Because let's be honest, like, there is a lot of money, let's not shy away from that, but where is it all going? So if we have these opportunities to be able to go to whoever it is and put in bids and talk about exhibitions and all of this kind of stuff, if there's people already there, or we create those people in our community, then that's the way we're going to move forward. Because I think collectively we found, or some kind of similarity between a lot of people on this panel, maybe a lot of you guys as well, is that we found that it's hard to go out of our community and try to convince other people. So why don't we start at home and within ourselves, where we feel comfortable with people that look like us, with people that understand us and can relate to us and empathize with us and have the same stories, and then we can worry about trying to go out into the world. Let's try and respect each other first, because I think the most important thing is that your community respects you personally.
Just a quick point. You mentioned Ra Kirtan and how nobody goes to the Gurdwara to listen to Ra Kirtan. You have an opportunity tomorrow. Unfortunately, a very respected Ragi, Bhai Babir Singh Ji, passed away recently, and Basics of Sikhi will be holding a Kirtan Darbar, Rag Kirtan Darbar, at Park Avenue Gurdwara tomorrow at 7 o'clock. And there's going to be some really, really good Rag Kirtanis there as well. So I encourage you all to go down and have a listen. So I want to put that same question to you, Singh Mahoon. How can the Sikh community help new artists?
Thank you. Like Benji covered everything that I was going to say. There's just one or two more things I wanted to say. I think as a Sikh, we should be clearer in the idea of what is Sikh art and have a much higher expectation. Just a brown face shouldn't be enough to win us over. Content is really important. We should support all Sikh art that is political, that expresses what the governments have tried to silence. And this is a personal one. When you go to the Gurdwara and you hear Taddi singing, Taddi inspired me, inspired everything that I do. My music is, I would like to say, a version of Taddi in my broken way that I make it. And so if you do hear Taddi, listen to it, sit with it, give your peta. Taddi is a rare art form and it needs support. I wanted to say make Khalistan, but I wanted to water it down a bit. So normalize Khalistan and the conversation of Khalistan. Normalize Sikhi as a whole, not as fragments. We don't want broken Sikhi no more. We want full Sikhi. We want Miri and Piri. Support those who do not use parts of Sikhi and erase the others to help themselves progress in their careers. Support those who choose not to be bent by state pressure and have full confidence in their Sikhi. That's it.
For me, it's stories. We have such a rich background, man. We're warriors. We come from warriors, I mean, what greater thing to know that. And everything that is there for us to read. I don't necessarily think I was destined to be this great inquisitive. No, I picked it up from my dad. I did my studies to kind of redefine what I had learned from him, and I remembered stories. So this link that you're recording is going to go global. So I just encourage any student, anyone that is interested in doing the arts, to realize that you don't have to have a talent. What is a talent? Talent isn't something you're born with, man. You are who you are, man. Anyone can. And on that note, Dharan, I would love to come and work with the kids, man. And I'm sure they can draw something that I can't. I promise you that, man. So I'm gonna put that out there now. I'll definitely love to work on that.
A really important point you made about Sakhis. For me, as well, as you mentioned earlier as well, learning about the Sakhis of the Shaheed Singhs and Singnia, that's really what drew me into Sikhi at a young age, drew my heart into Sikhi. The rest of me didn't follow until a later age, but Sakhis are really, really important. Dharan Singh, could you give your answer? The question is, how can the Sikh community help new artists and better support creative talents? Which you've
biggest way to help artists is to buy their artwork and pay them the price that value their work and stuff. And I think and spread the word as well. Like, so if you know that Benji's doing a show somewhere, we should all be there, really, innit? So when she comes to Birmingham, I'm gonna be there. But I think the other thing as well is kind of, we all have young people around us, our kids, our nieces, our nephews, and they've all got these kind of ideas and dreams and stuff, and we should be around and be that kind of elder, the kind of person who they can speak to and find out what it is they're interested in, and be able to kind of give them that bit of encouragement that they require to actually maybe move towards what they're kind of thinking of doing. And I think that can just be really powerful if you can just be there for somebody else and just say, yeah, look, I understand what you're saying. And like, while I'm here today, my colleague Marcus is actually doing a school fair in Birmingham, so he would have been here today, but obviously he's there doing a school careers fair, so he's teaching the kids about the stuff that we do and how they can come in. Because the thing is, a lot of traditional artists who are maybe struggling with traditional art, all their skills are actually transferable to digital art and new digital fields. Immersive technologies and all these types of things that are emerging. Yeah, they are desperate for creative people. And so if we can teach them some skills or give them kind of a different idea. So I whenever I talk to kids, I say, okay, yeah, you like drawing, you like doing this, but what are other ways that you could do this? And there's so many careers out there which need creative people who work in architecture, engineering, people who work in like immersive technologies, game design, all these kind of fields. Yeah. And our kids can fulfill themselves, and you can have really amazing careers out there. And what I'm finding especially in Birmingham as well, is that when you go to these immersive technology conferences, yeah, it is like it's all white people. And I just said that I've stopped going to them now, because I just think you're going there and you're preaching to people who are already on board. Yeah, what we need to do is go into our communities, whatever your skill is or whatever your talent is, go into your communities and say, okay, yeah, look, if you're interested in this, these are the different ways that you could do it, and just be the help that you needed when you were in that position. Yeah. And that's it.
Definitely. Marfi, we've gone over time somewhat, but I think we've had an excellent discussion. I mean, when I saw the panel, I had really high expectations, and for me, you guys have completely surpassed those expectations. So thank you very, very much. We can continue this discussion here in this room. We've got some time for some networking now, and also on social media as well. We need to develop and enrich this conversation. We need to make sure that it doesn't just end here. So thank you very much all for your time. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.